So the Maruti Suzuki Jimny is one of our best of 2023. Joining me today to accept the award is Mr. Shashank Srivastava, Senior Executive Director, Maruti Suzuki. Shashank-san, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So Shashank-san, the Jimny had a lot of expectation coming in, a lot of anticipation. Has it lived up to that expectation?
I think yes, and maybe a little could be better. So what is yes is actually the great brand image that it carries.
Yeah.
It's got that really positive vibes, which is not just for the Jimny alone, but for the entire portfolio of SUVs that Maruti Suzuki has now, which has made us, I believe, Jimny has helped us become the #1 SUV manufacturer in H1, as you just saw.
Yeah.
The partly yes part is about maybe the customer feedback in terms of the pricing, which they believe it's the starting price is a little higher, although since it's a four-wheel drive and it's only a four-wheel drive, it's we try to explain to the customer. But I think that message across to the customer, we are still in the process of communication.
So Shashank-san, I was looking at the sales numbers for October. Of the top 10 cars, 6 are Maruti Suzukis. Most global auto manufacturers say that India is a very difficult market, but you make it look like a cakewalk. So what is the secret?
Yeah, so by the way, October we had 6 out of 10, but if you look at cumulatively, April to October, we have 7 out of 10. And of course, one of the biggest reasons, and I think this is something which everybody in the industry accepts, is that the real reason for Maruti Suzuki's success and the high hit ratio of hits, the 7 out of 10 vehicles that we are talking about, is about being close to the customer. So we have to understand what is the real need of the customer, what's he looking for in every segment to which he belongs. What is it that he looks for in a car? Is it functional? Is it aspiration? How much is he willing to pay? What features he wants? What technology? And so on and so forth. So that's something which I believe Maruti Suzuki has done very well. It comes from being really close to the customer, keep researching with the customers, and I think that's the real secret.
And you mentioned #1 in SUVs. 1 year ago, you were 10% market share.
Yeah.
Now you're more than double that and you're #1.
Yeah.
So was this part of some grand plan, or are you just really good at doing catch up?
It's like this, if you look at the non-SUV part of the market, Maruti Suzuki's market share is 65%. And the SUV market share, though, last year, Q1 was 8.5%. So when you combine the two, the SUV and the non-SUV market share, 65% and 8%, then it is falling short of 50%.
Yeah.
It's about 43. So we have our objective to achieve 50% market share in the medium term.
Yeah.
And that's not possible unless we get a high market share in SUV segment. Earlier it was possible because SUV was a smaller component of the overall market. But now SUV is almost 50% of the market. So we realized a long time back that we need to have a good market share in the SUV segment.
Yeah.
And we had the Brezza. And Brezza is the market leader. Even in this year, it's the #1 selling SUV.
Yeah.
But when we looked at the entire portfolio of vehicles which are available in the SUV segment, there were 47 models in the industry. We had 1. So, I mean, kitna bacche ki jaan kitni li jayegi? So, that used to give us about 8.5% market share, which is good. It was a top selling SUV. But clearly we needed to strengthen our portfolio. And we had no vehicle in the mid SUV segment. The mid SUV segment is roughly 50% of the overall SUV segment. And if you look at the overall market, it's now about 23% of the market. So obviously we had to have a presence there. And we had the Vitara, which we launched with the hybrid as well, which was in September last year. And then followed it up with Fronx and the Jimny. And that's how we started increasing our market share. So we reached about 10% in Q2 from 8.5% in Q1. We reached 14% in Q3, 16% in Q4, 20% in Q1 of this year, and now 23%. and now the number one manufacturer. This has been the journey, and the good thing is we have tried to segment the SUV market in sub-segments, tried to put our vehicles in each of these, and that's how we have become the number one manufacturer.
So Shashank-san, we're sitting here talking about the Jimny. We're here because of the Jimny. But I've owned a Rally Gypsy, I've loved it. My team, my fellow jury members are enthusiasts, so we love products like this. But number one, sales is still a product that doesn't get talked about very often like a WagonR.
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, how important is a niche product like a Jimny for Maruti Suzuki?
I'll explain that. It's a great question, and it's a question which increasingly people are asking me. So as I said, we have divided the SUV segment into sub-segments. Like the mid SUV, you have within the entry SUV segment, the compact SUV segment, which used to be just one type of vehicle, which was the Brezza, Sonnet, Venue type of vehicle. We found that as the market became bigger, and in fact this market is expected to be almost like 1 million plus, the compact SUV. Whenever we have seen a sub-segment becoming bigger, then further segmentation happens, because there is an emergence of customer class with different preferences, and they are large enough volumes for manufacturers to be interested in those segments. And clearly in the compact SUV segment, we had this traditional boxy SUV-ish traditional shape of like the Brezza, and then there was a segment which was more urban, more tech savvy, looking at features, and also not really constrained by the conservative, traditional looks of a SUV. And that's the Franc segment. So it's urban, it's tech, it's sophisticated, it's looking for a slightly different shape. In fact, the tagline for Franc is the shape of new, and that's been really successful. And then is an emergence of a segment which in our country is still small. It's around 45-50,000 vehicles annually, and that is the segment is the lifestyle SUV segment, which the Jimny comes in, where the Jimny comes in. So there we had the Thar from Mahindra that sells around 40-45,000 units. This is a growing segment, and we thought that it's also great in terms of the image that it provides. That's that off-roading 4x4, the genuine SUV sort of picture that it emerges in your mind whenever you see a product like the Jimny or the Thar. And that is the segment which we said we should approach. And we had the Jimny, fortunately, in the Suzuki family, and this is the 4th generation Jimny. It sold more than 3 million vehicles this week in 199 countries. We didn't have this car in India. It's been 3-door throughout its life. It started in 1970. So throughout it has been 3-door. But in India we got an overwhelming feedback. It has to be 5-door, and we developed it. That's why it came a little bit with a lag in the market. A lot of people said you showed it in the Auto Expo. What happened? 2 years have gone by. That's because we were developing the 5-door version in response to the consumer feedback. And we therefore went into this segment, even though it is small. And as I said, it's giving us a great brand rub-off on all our products.
So for the Indian market, you went through the effort of making it 5-door. Now you're getting feedback saying that maybe 2-wheel drive, yes, no. It's amazing off-road. It's got a low-range gearbox. But the Thar you mentioned is in this segment. They've just launched a 2-wheel drive version. Any chance of a Jimny going 2-wheel drive?
I think it's, well, we did give it a big thought and a detailed one at that. Right now, the consensus within our strategy group is that maybe a 2-wheel drive doesn't go so well with a genuine off-roader like a Jimny. So we aren't really looking at great volumes here, because in any case the market is small, and we don't want to sort of compromise the brand image, which is essentially four-wheel off-roader for the Jimny across the world, not just in India. So we don't want to compromise that. So the general consensus which is emerged so far is that let's not get into the two-wheel drive category, even though probably it will be 2 lakh rupees cheaper than the starting price can be good. But at the moment we are saying, instead of chasing volumes, let's chase the brand ethos, the core value which the Jimny provides. And in our country, and I'm very personally very bullish about it. There is emerging a big class of consumers who want to explore, have adventure, and they go to places which are offbeat. Generally, they want a vehicle which will be like really tough for any type of terrain. And this tagline for this is all: never turn back.
You mentioned the Grand Vitara. So you have a full hybrid, an intelligent hybrid. What is the sales split between the full top-of-the-line hybrid versus the other variants which are non-hybrid?
So it's like 23%, that range.
Okay.
In some months it goes up to 30% as well. But on an average, right since it was launched, it was in last year, it's in that 23% the hybrid range, and the other is the naturally aspirated.
So, as you said, one of the great things about Maruti Suzuki is the insight that you have on the Indian customer. So, how has that customer changed, let's say, in the last decade?
Oh, well, hugely. I mean, I don't know where to begin, but if you look at it in terms of the volume itself, which is a reflection of the requirement of the economy, the transportation requirement, the personal transport, etc., it's jumped up hugely. It's today expected this year to be about 4.1 million. 2030, the expectation is 6 million. 10 years back, it was just under 2 million. So it has been a huge jump in terms of the penetration of cars itself, the motorization of the country. That's one. Second, if you look at the type of the vehicles, that has developed hugely. New segments have emerged. SUVs are now 50% of the market. Used to be about 6 or 7% in 2010. So that's like a huge change in terms of the body type preference. The consumer itself, the first time buyer, although have been remarkably similar, 45-47%, but the replacement buying has gone up to 30%. It came down during the COVID time, still is going back again. The additional car buying this year is also pretty huge. It's almost 34-35%. So that's another change. Then you look at the powertrain types. So in 2010-11, the diesel was the largest powertrain. 58% of the industry was diesel. Today it is less than 17% is diesel, and the people are a lot more sensitive to environment, and the criteria for buying is also shifting from functionality to more aspiration. The size of the vehicle is changing. 10 years back, 70% of the cars were hatches. Today they are less than 30% is hatch. So in every aspect is changing. And it's not just that. The process of buying itself has changed. So it's like more digitalized. And if we have done some research into the process itself. There are 26 touch points a customer goes through from the time he thinks of buying a car to actual delivery. 24 of those 26 touch points are now digitalized. It's only the test drive and the actual delivery which is not. In test drive also, by the way, we are experimenting with the 3D immersive, in the metaverse. You can actually get the feeling as if you are, doing a test drive. So that's also probably will get digitalized. So many changes. Infrastructure changes. So you see we have an Nexa channel which appeals to the more aspirational customer, where the choice of the first criteria of buying is aspiration, not functional. But there is a large chunk still in India, the Bharat as we say, which is like more functional, for which we have the Arena channel, the Maruti Suzuki traditional value. But then we have also made this new channel, the Nexa. Nexa, by the way, is either the number 2 or number 3 channel every month after Maruti Suzuki. So many things have changed. The average buying age has come down. If you are going gender-wise, if you see, there are more female buyers. If you see the average MHI has gone up. So you can see changes all across.
So the relationship with Toyota has been very successful. What is the future of that partnership?
Yeah, so the relationship is actually on a headquarter to headquarter basis. It's between Suzuki Motor Corporation, our parent
Yeah.
company, with Toyota in Japan.
Yeah.
And we have in India a relationship where we are sharing production of some models. So we provide them the Glanza, the Bellino, which is there. We used to give the Brezza, which was the which was the what was that? Urban Cruiser, the Urban Cruiser. Then we have the Grand Vitara, which is produced there, but it's a Suzuki car. It's also sold as High Rider with the Toyota badge. Then we have the Invicto, which is sold as the High Cross. So there are a lot of good. In fact, almost, I mean, more than 40% of the 43-44% of the vehicles Toyota sells is basically the Maruti Suzuki stable. So great sort of synergies. And I believe in the technology front also, on the global scale, there is a lot of sharing of technology as well.
And you mentioned the transition away from diesel in India. When you made that transition, it was considered very risky, but it turned out to be a very prophetic sort of move. Now, with your first EV taking shape, there's a lot of hype, for lack of a better word. But is the customer demand, do you foresee that matching the hype, let's say, that is being developed for EVs?
Actually, we have said that before. Our outlook for EVs is a little more restrained and compared with what you hear in the media. We believe that the penetration of EVs in our country in the passenger vehicle segment would be roughly around 17 to 19% by 2030, unlike some predictions which are saying 50% or even more. So that's our view. We also believe that in order to achieve the emission targets for our country, in our country, maybe we need a mix of technology, which is basically hybrids, CNG, the flex fuel, and of course the electric vehicle. We also believe that long term, probably EVs and maybe some other technologies they will be mainstream, but you will have to go through a process of many technologies to finally, when they become really mainstream, the EVs. And one of the big reasons, of course, is the cost of acquisition of EVs is very high, and that's because the battery cost, which is 50% of the EV vehicle cost, is very high. Localization hasn't happened. Suzuki has put in almost 10,000 crores for localization of battery and battery components. We believe that is going to be also a game changer in terms of the battery cost, and that can give a Maruti Suzuki a very big advantage going forward. And the charging infrastructure. The charging infrastructure in our country is also not so developed, and therefore you have what you call the range anxiety in consumers as to they have. Moreover, if you look at some of the other countries where there is a bigger penetration of EVs, like Norway, Netherlands, Germany, France, even now UK starting, you see almost 90-95% people park cars at the same place every night. That is, they have exclusive parking space, which is not true in India. Our research suggests it's only about 47% people have a parking space where they can park every night. Otherwise, it's like so there is a difference, and therefore, looking at all these, we believe 17 to 19% is what the EV penetration would be by 2030. And for Maruti Suzuki, by 2030, 15% of our domestic portfolio will be electric, 25% will be strong hybrid, and 60% the balance will be a mix of CNG, biogas, and flex fuel, and of course gasoline.
Finally, Shashank-san, looking ahead to 24, there's a lot of volatility geopolitically in the world today. Do you think that will affect India, or will there be any economic uncertainty looking into next year? How do you foresee it playing out?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think generally speaking, while this year has been really good in terms of the overall volume, also the growth figure still will be in that 5 to 7% range, which we had predicted at the beginning of the year. Maybe that 5 we have revised slightly upward to 5.5 on the lower side, and the upper side remaining the same, around 7%. I think next year, while we are still going through our research and going through our that entire thought process of what it would be, looks to me like a flattish And there are certain uncertainties which is giving you this feeling. One, of course, is inflation still continues to be quite high. That means the bank rates are high. 80% of the 80% of the retail sales in our industry happens through retail financing. If retail financing rates remain elevated, it could be a concern going forward. Fuel prices is very volatile, the geopolitical situation, and that's a negative for the industry. These are the two major negatives. And of course, on the rural side, while we have had a very sort of normal monsoon, about 94%, so that's -6%, but the spatial distribution of monsoon has been a little irregular, and I think the timing also makes the kharif production the kharif output actually. So while the sowing is normal, the output might be a little lower, and we'll see as we go along how the rabi sowing goes. That can affect the rural sentiment and hence overall the market. So there are some big ifs and question marks, but so far this year seems to have been very good.
Shashank san, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations again on the
Thank you very
success of
much.
the Jimny.
Thank you.